Many blessings and welcome to the full moon in Aries. It's going to be a big week for us. Happy equinox. This is VerDarLuz from Divine Timing Coaching. I'm an evolutionary astrologer and human design life and business coach, and want to welcome you to a very special portal, which is the autumn equinox. We're at the midpoint of light and dark, right? The balance. And this theme of balance is really coming up for us during the next really 6-7 weeks, as we kind of enter the eclipse portal pretty early this year because of the full moon and what's going on with it this week in Aries. So it's a really impactful moon. There's a lot of initiatory energy coming, a lot of courage that's needed, maybe a little bit of a quick movement that could hurt us. So we're going to get into all the themes today. We're going to look at all the signs and go through each of the houses that may be landing in your chart. So stay tuned as we go through all the themes first and then the personal interpretation. So I want to start today with a quote from a very famous Sun in Aries, and it's Lady Gaga. "Don't you ever let a soul in the world tell you that you can't be exactly who you are." Very Aries, right? And as we approach this full moon coming up on Friday, the 29th, we're going to feel more and more like, wow, there's something unique and special and innovative and, very like, only I can do this, right? That's coming through me. And it's something that may require a risk. Like we have to dare into it. Like it may be not what we expected from ourselves, what other people expected from us. So it's interesting because we're entering this Libra season, which is really about turning towards the other. And this is the big balancing act in the sky that we're dealing with during this eclipse season that's coming up in October. And as we look at the October astrology, highlights, we're really looking at the themes of the eclipses being the dominant themes. And Libra eclipse is coming. And so we need to look at the balance of what I need, myself, my independence, my freedom, my daring, my courageous leadership, but also like, what do my people need? What do my friends need? What do my partners need? And how can I show up for them? And that's a delicate balancing act. And so when we look at the theme of the equinox, it's not that there's a particular transit that happens there that is, overwhelming us. It is the sun entering its fall, and it's the fall season. It's fall in the sign of Libra. And it's because the sun, wants to shine and be bright and share its light as itself, right? It doesn't want to share it with someone else, right? There aren't two suns in the sky. And so when we look at the sun in Aries, back in spring equinox, that's when everyone gets really like initiated into like, this is my project. This is what I'm going for. I'm going to travel. I'm going to adventure into this. That's the exaltation of it, the sun in Aries. Well, the sun enters its fall. This is what we call essential dignity with the planets. How well do those planets function in the signs that they're in? And so when the sun's in Libra, it can't shine by itself. It can't hide away either. It needs to actually turn towards another, a partner, a lover, a friend, a collaborator, a colleague. And this is how it will shine. And this is so interesting mythologically because this is Libra is the sign that was traditionally called Hades' chariot. It wasn't Libra to the ancients. Hades, Pluto, is the name of Pluto in the Greek tradition. So in the ancient world, the constellation was seen as the chariot of Hades. And of course, the next sign is Scorpio. And when you get the symbolism here and the level of the astrotheological storyline that's going on is that the sun, starts to weaken as it goes through Virgo. It's like on its high horse and its high throne in Leo, and then it goes into Virgo, has to humble itself, become a servant, and then really has to turn to the other in Libra. And really this is the dying off phase of the sun, right? And of course, the light starts to dim and the nights get longer. And in the northern hemisphere, we have this process where a lot of these constellations and stories come from. So there's a realizing of our own weakness during the equinox. Not that that's bad. It requires that we turn towards others for support, and that we give that support as well, as we go into the underworld, right? And we know always at this time of the year, you know, relationships become a big theme for us, and that's business, that's love, that's across the board. So when we look at this full moon that's coming in, I'm going to pull up the charts, and we're going to start to look at the cycles here. We're going to see that, just these windows, there we go. We have the full moon on the 29th at 6 degrees of Aries. So the first thing we want to talk about is, what is the nature of the full moon? What does it mean in Aries? And then we need to reflect on, what are the cycles going on during this moon? How is it projecting us into the next month of October? Because this is really just 2 days before the beginning of October. And what is being set up from this moon with the eclipses coming in October? Because this is really, we're really entering a pivotal moment, and we can feel it. We can feel that there's certain people hovering around us, or certain relationships, things are needing to change. There's a dynamism coming. And with Aries, there's a sense of, with an Aries full moon, there's always this time of year of like, I got to courageously, you know, leap into the new, into something that really fires me up, that's all about my passion, right? This can be a very entrepreneurial full moon. And it's really interesting to watch what's happening with the ruler of the moon. So the first thing, of course, leadership, courage, daring, pioneering spirit, that's the Aries full moon. But let's look at what's happening here. Mars is the ruler of this full moon, and because Mars rules Aries. Now, Mars is doing some very interesting things during this full moon. And what makes this sort of a harbinger, or, you know, a prophet of the coming eclipses, is that Mars is at 21 degrees of Libra down here. And that's the exact degree of the eclipse coming in on October 14th. So what's happening during this full moon with Mars, with what's driving and motivating us and our passions, which have to do with actually turning to the other. Mars is in Libra. This is really going to set the stage for what's coming over the next 6, 7, 8 weeks, and possibly beyond. So we need to connect to our desires, and then we're looking at how to authentically express ourselves, but also hold space for another to do the same. You know, this is always a Mars and Libra type of thing. And Mars gets frustrated sometimes in Libra. It's also the sign of what we call detriment. So Mars rules Aries, right? So you got Mars in detriment, you got Sun in its fall in Libra. So there's a real need to turn towards the other. And even though those words sound, you know, sort of negative in their connotation, it's just because Mars likes to go do what it wants to do when it wants to do it, right? And in this sign, it can't. It really needs, it's the acknowledgement of interdependence and the support that we need. And now this could be such a great time to be collaborating, to be finding joint venture partners. If you're, you know, in your businesses, you know, if you want to get your message out to the world, it could be a great time to, you know, find a podcast to be on, or, you know, guest speaking somewhere. It's great to be aligning yourself with those who have some of the same goals and causes as you, you know, and to really step into that role as mediator, as diplomat, as you know, deep listener, right? And motivate yourself around that process, you know, and as you drive towards relationships that are inspiring and igniting, it's like we're looking at what's the win-win for everyone, right? But we have to slow down. And that's hard always with the full moon in Aries, but we have to slow down because Mars is coming to the South Node. And this suggests that some of our desires we may be pushing too hard. We may be forcing an issue. We may be too aggressive. And so the South Node is a symbol of decrease. It's known as the dragon's tail. It's like something is being digested and let go of. So again, with what we desire, it may not go in the direction we think or we had planned for. And so it's really important to stay open with this full moon. And especially as Mars moves, through this conjunction with the South Node, until he gets into his home sign of Scorpio in a few weeks, then that's going to be a much more, I don't like to use the word comfortable because Scorpio is not a comfortable sign so much, but for Mars, it's the ability to go into the depths, to collaborate on a very deep level, to be quite intimate and empowered. In Libra, it's very indecisive, right? And there may be a lot of indecisiveness going on for us right now. But it's also triggering. This is a triggering moon because Mars is opposite Chiron. And this is significant because this could bring up like a core wound around following what we want, or we might recognize even where our own third chakra, our will center, our desired nature has been shut down. And then it like gets really activated, like with Mars on the South Node and in Libra, where it can't go forward exactly the way it wants. So patience is going to be really important during this moon cycle, but also a desire to go into that wounded place or that victimized place and really acknowledge that there's some work to do. There's some work to do, and it's going to require certain relationships in our life. It may be physical healing, right? Mars, like you might need to find a trainer. You might need to find a certain kind of body work modality that's really physical. You need to be more aerobic in your life. You need to be exercising, right? Like all that martial arts, right? Martial arts is a beautiful Libra expression because it has more of the elegance to it. Qigong, especially Tai Chi. But it's, it's movement oriented. So that could be a great way of working with this Mars Chiron. It also could motivate us to step into, or kind of boldly drive ourselves into our role as a mentor or a coach or a guide or a healer, which is all the symbols of Chiron. Chiron, the wise centaur, who was the archetypal mentor. But it's always with Chiron, there's a need to receive the mentorship and to give it. I stress a lot about that. I talked about that in my second book about Chiron, the shamanic artist and the wounded healer, that, when we have Chiron transits, we need to recognize where that victimhood or trigger story is, and then get support in transcending that, not by going beyond it, but by going deep within and then accessing the power that's in there, the power to help other people in ways that we've struggled or suffered. And so, yeah, also Aries is involved. Now you won't see Aries here. I don't have the symbol up, but Aries is at 21. She's like almost exactly opposite this Mars in Aries. Aries doesn't move a lot, but she's known as the goddess of discord. And the Trojan War, got started with Aries. But with the Aries, there's a symbol of strife, of tension, of conflict. And so, Aries full moon, Aries is already the sign of war, right? Battle. So we got to pick our battles really carefully right now. And what we need to be really careful of as we move forward, if we just kind of take this like a week out, okay, what starts to happen here, October 6th, right? Mars is on the South Node. At the same time, Mars is going to square Pluto. If you remember 2 years ago was, October-ish, that time, coming into November. This was when Mars was squaring Pluto as well. And this was extremely intense. What happens here is our personal desires come into this, this conflict with the god of the underworld, Pluto, right? And usually this brings up some kind of intense trauma or a power struggle. We look at this is usually a very egoic kind of battleground that has to be really fought. And So we really want to be careful around this cycle of what we're saying, how we're saying it. Again, think Libra and partnerships. And this can be, again, very empowering around certain relationships in our life when there's mutual benevolence happening. But again, this is, that week, the sun comes in to start to oppose Chiron. So again, the wound can get triggered. Fortunately, Mercury goes into Libra at that time, and that should create more cooperation, more, diplomacy amongst ourselves and willingness to listen. But when we see this, South Node with Pluto, Pluto is squaring the nodes. He's been squaring almost all year pretty much, but really strong, for many months now. And this is bringing us to an evolutionary pivot for a lot of our lives. Like, what do we really want? What direction are we really going? And during this cycle, we actually have to turn towards others to get some clarity around that. It's like the season of soul contracts, and every Libra season can be that, but having Mars go through here and then Mercury come in and then the eclipse coming, and we'll jump to that in a moment, it really shows us that we are all messengers for each other, and whether we know it or not. And that's why it in all the spiritual traditions, whether it's mysticism of different traditions or the Stoics, they talk so strongly about the power of our speech and what we say and how we say it. And this is something I think that's going to really come up for us, because you're going to see a big shift taking place here, right? If we go forward, look at what happens with Venus. Venus goes into Virgo on October 9th. And this is a really big transition. She's been in Leo all summer, right? Like June, all the way back. And so this is just before Mars goes into Scorpio here on the 12th. Okay, so there's going to be some big shift from the Leo Libra, kind of air fire there, fire air, and then going into that earth and then water. So we're going, the god and goddess are going out of this very yang energy and they're going into this very yin energy for the last 3 weeks of October, mid-October, as the eclipses are coming in. So before we get into that sort of, I bring up Virgo because we're going to look at Venus, the goddess, being much more critical, much more about improvement and refinement. In Leo, she's just been all summer like big, bold, stand out, like, look at me, be proud, find myself, like, be creative. And now she's going to get more into, okay, I got to work on some things. So do you. We got to tweak things, right? And so before this, and this is why this season of soul contracts is so important, we have the last pass, and it's active during this full moon this week. See this? Look at Venus. Venus is not only with Juno, the asteroid of sacred partnership or committed relationships. I think of Juno as soul contracts. These are not unconditional love relationships. These are conditional love relationships. And so we're looking at conditions on relationships, and we're looking at Venus squaring Uranus. This is the third time. So we should be looking back over the summer at some of the energies that might have surprised us, some of the shocks to our system around relationships, around how we earn or spend money, and around our creative process, and even what we find beautiful. This is all gone through a big transformation with Venus retrograde and then Venus squaring Uranus. This square is the culmination moment, of the previous two squares over the last few months. And it's kind of like everything that has come up needs to be, there's a new kind of version of our values. There's a new way that we identify ourselves. There's a sense of a different approach to how we relate, how we might be earning money. There may be a breakthrough for a lot of us, you know, and it may have been a breakdown in the previous Venus-Uranus squares that came over this summer. You know, it's about staying open. You know, with Uranus, there's always an experimental quality. And so with relationships, with how we earn money, trying something new, being novel, right? Artistically as well, you know, maybe it's a new instrument, maybe it's a new kind of writing that you're doing, or style or genre, or a new way you're sharing your message with the world, right? It's standing out. Leo, Venus and Leo. This is a good time to really experiment, right? But, you know, be careful with that Uranian sort of shock and you know, surprise and kind of volatile energy that could come in. But it could be a good time to surround yourself with some different people, go to an exciting party. Where I am in Greece right now, there's going to be an animated film festival during this week. So I'm going to go to that. You know, that's very Venus-Uranus, you know, unique kinds of art forms, hybrid art, you know, hybrid writing, all of that. So embrace that and get ready, right, for Venus going into Virgo, right? And that's a sign, again, where she is not, you know, if we go to October 9th, she's not so comfortable there. She's like, again, tweaking things. Now, she's the high priestess, and she can be the gardener, the herbalist, or she can be in the kitchen, right? Refining her recipes so that they're healthier, right? She might not have been so healthy with Venus and Leo, and Venus squaring Jupiter a lot and being very indulgent, possibly this summer. But in Virgo, that's, you know, we might get into fasting more or detoxing more. And so there might be elements of our life that need to be detoxed. Now, there is going to be this movement. Let's look at this. There's Mars going into Scorpio on October 12th. And so this is going to be a deeper energy of going within ourselves to access our power, and then to learn how to compromise and to, you know, adjust enough to empower ourselves and others simultaneously. And this is going to require some shadow work. You know, this prepares us for when the sun goes into Scorpio. But having Mars go in there will actually empower the god to go into the unconscious, to do more ceremonial work, more process work, and investigate, you know, more of the causes of any issues going on that, again, Venus and Virgo also might excavate, might unearth, literally, in that earth sign. So, you know, if we look at Mars has just gone into Scorpio as the eclipse comes in here, and this is coming in, there's the sun, moon, right? And this is coming on the 14th of October, but it's at 21 Libra. We just move this forward, you'll see this happening right here. Yeah. So, and Mercury is right there as well. And so to me, this is a very social moon, very significant. There's a lot of information being shared. I'm sure there's going to be some very interesting news going on during this time. And, you know, again, the energy of mutual support, obviously relationships are going to be huge. You can see that this, you know, this means that over that next week, right, with eclipse energy, it's the sun crossing the south node. There's energies coming from the past, and so that means that we could imagine, you know, just like we had with Venus retrograde this summer, like some karmic relationships, people that we know before, that we have these soul contracts with, really coming into our lives. And the question is, what have we come to learn? What have we come to maybe release through a revelation through those relationships? And what can we create together, right? What wants to be born through us? This is why I love astrology and human design so much, because they're languages, systems that show us our soul contracts. So when we do synastry, right, and we compare charts, and when we do composite charts, and we put the two together as one, that's when we can really find out, hey, what did we come to do together? Should we have a family together? Should we go travel together? Should we start a business together? If so, when should we do these things, right? That's the beauty of astrology and design. They answer those questions for us in very specific ways. So this would be the season of going deeper into your soul contracts. And if you're interested in that, I love doing, couples coaching or even for business partnerships. And I think a lot of people are realizing right now that, some of us get together and we have this kind of initial, maybe, romantic, even sometimes sexual spark, but maybe we come together to create something else, right? We could be creating a project or a business together. And a lot more people are forming businesses who are in, personal, intimate, romantic relationships together. And it becomes even more important to understand what the soul contracts are and to use these tools, because it can be very difficult. I know I've worked with partners, partners you live with and work with, and you do, the life dance with. You need some objective language, right? And this eclipse season is where that can really be helpful. So love to support you in that process, whether it's business or personal relationships. Now, if you go forward here, we're going to see that if we look at what's happening, Venus, let's go back here, because we need to acknowledge that as soon as she goes into, I'm going by hours. Let's go back just to a couple of days. So this is back on, we can say that by the 7th, Venus is in this opposition to Saturn. And this again emphasizes what we were just talking about with soul contracts, but this is a sense of, some kind of, with Saturn, there's some kind of reckoning or like serious, sober mirroring that's taking place with relationships in our life, with our finances, with our creative process. Saturn is going to bring some kind of, you need to be more responsible, more accountable. There's something a bit heavy with this that comes through, and there could feel like a block. But this can also be the time to like recommit to what we're doing with our love relationships, with our creative projects. This could be a really good time to get analytical about our finances and how we're investing, long-term investing, Saturn, right? Long-term ROIs really coming in. That hasn't been around this summer. I mean, Venus, Jupiter squares, Venus and Leo, it's so in the moment and kind of spontaneous joy and play. Now it gets a lot more serious. And you're going to feel that with this Venus-Saturn transit coming in, right? And so very important to acknowledge that happening. And if we move forward, one of the other big events of October, of course, is let's look at what's happening with Mercury here. Mercury on the Sun. This is the Mercury Cazimi. So this will happen the 19th. Important messages come through during that time. And, it could be a time to give an important message as well. But I think, again, this is going to emphasize some kind of relationships that are very significant, that you have, information for each other. You have ideas for each other. You have collaborative possibilities for each other. And a great time, again, to be learning about the art of partnership and how to be in it in the best way. Acknowledging, again, that opposition to Chiron that will be, coming from Mercury and the Sun, right? So October 14th with Mercury, back it up. You could see the 11th here. And then you have this transit here with the Sun going into Scorpio, right? Now this happens always during October 23rd. And this is, not always October 23rd, but This is also significant because it's interesting to watch how the sun and Mercury were in Libra together, and then they're in Scorpio together, right? And it's pretty recent after. And then you have the sun and Mercury and Mars coming very close together here in Scorpio, right? So we're going to see that intensification. Sometimes it's very dramatic types of energy that can start to come in with all of that Scorpio. But what makes this more intense, right, is that we have the eclipse. And this eclipse will be, you can see this, this energy is happening here, and the hour will be right here. So you have the moon and sun here in that Taurus eclipse. And so this is on October 28th. Jupiter is involved, Mercury is involved. There's so much. We're going to talk about this a lot more in another video, but in very important messages coming through. Could be an amazing time to actually kind of, you know, merge the left and right brains, get very deep into intimacy. This is, you know, Taurus, Scorpio, it's sensuality, it's sexuality. Look at moon, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, sun, lots of information that can be processed through the body, right? Could be a time also of like really important somatic therapies, you know, massage, but all kinds of, you know, more psychosomatic types of therapies, right? Really talking to the body, through the body. I imagine, you know, ceremonial work during this time, having a lot of, you know, de-armoring going on, where we're taking off layers of what's been built up. So really, really big eclipse coming in with this end of the month of October. So really a month from now, we're setting the stage again with this full moon in Aries. And we need to, again, this is going to be very physical. You can see that Mars here, and we want to be careful with that, right? Always with Mars in an eclipse. But this brings up all the issues of the last year and a half plus, where the eclipses have been in Taurus and Scorpio. And so I want to invite you, as you start to reflect on this, looking back 19 years ago, that's exactly when the eclipses were in these signs, you know, pivoting between Taurus, Scorpio, Aries, Libra. And then 19 years ago, also 9 years ago would have been the opposite, when instead of the eclipses being in Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, they would be flipped, where the solar and the south node and the north node are. So that means that when we look at the houses coming up right now, where these are going to be landing in your chart, we're going to be looking at some interesting themes that could be recurring from 9 years before, from 19 years before, because there's always a dance of similar themes, of oppositional themes with the eclipses. So let's go to the Aries part of your chart, right? Because this full moon on the 29th and the full moon, sorry, the eclipse that's coming is going to be, again, activating these oppositional houses here. So let's bring it forward and get the exact moment here. But we're going to step through all the signs now. And you're going to see there's the exact full moon, but we're going to start with Libra rising. If you are Libra rising, I'm going to sip water. And so if you're Libra rising, you know, this full moon is going to land in your 7th house, which is the area of partnership. Well, you know, what have we been talking about? All video here is partnership. So this is just hugely amplified for Libra rising. I mean, it's always a theme for you, Libra risings, you know, to be looking at balancing out relationships in your life, and the need for mutual support instead of the tendency to give oneself away. This really emphasizes a relationship for you, and there's going to be someone significant, likely, that is playing a very important role. Probably a very social moon for you as well, and you do want to be careful with, you know, just dancing, like kind of, you know, the undulation of fluctuation between, like, you know, extremes, right, of self and other, of like am so involved and then I'm pulling back, right? And that kind of dance, right? And this could be happening as well for you Aries risings, because the moon will be in your first house. So it's very like emphasizing self-development. Very pioneering moon for you. You might be taking like a new job or having a new experience that feels like it's really all about like your own development, right? And is that going to bring up issues around relationship for you? So if we look at just Aries rising, remember that all this other energy is happening in the area of partnership. So that's why what I want to say with these, personal transits is that both of the houses are really being activated, and you should really be paying attention to your Aries house and Libra house, and with the eclipse, the Taurus house as well, very, very strongly. And naturally, of course, 6 degrees, any planets around 6 Capricorn or Cancer, Aries or Libra are going to be really affected by this week's full moon. So anything that you have around there, sun, moon, rising, other planets, Venus, you really should pay attention to those, because they're getting this, trigger point in a big way with this moon. And so for you, Aries rising, it is a really a stepping up, stepping out kind of full moon. Again, needing to constellate right relationship, balanced relationship. And so let's look back at the next sign, which would be Scorpio rising. And this is a moon that will land in your area of health and illness, and of daily practices, of karma yoga and service, the 6th house. So this might be saying, there's just more work I got to get done. There's a better regular regimen that I should be involved in. You definitely want to be careful to not burn yourself out with this moon, and also to get into like the daily pattern that works for you. And you might need to experiment with that a little bit, to get clear. There may be a need to, this is not like a shine bright type of month. It's a lot more, service work, internal work, some of that 12th house stuff going on here. And just getting your nose to the grind and doing the work you got to do, and doing some preventative health work, taking care of your physical body. And Sagittarius, the energy of the full moon is going to be landing in the 5th house, really emphasizing creative process, children, self-expression. And so, yeah, what are you creating, during this full moon? It's a great fiery, trine moon for you, Sag. So think about this, like, what is really motivating you, lighting your fire? Is this about teaching? Is this about a trip abroad or some travels, very fiery things? Might be something you're learning, right? But should be a more fun, playful, some community involved, maybe you're leading in some ways that are new for you. So should be a fairly, activating full moon for you, Sag risings. And then Capricorn, 4th house, I'm wondering if this is bringing up issues around where you're living, and do you need to move, or is there something about working from home? Lots of activation in your area of career right now. So career home energies are coming up big time. And you're thinking about, like, if I do need to move, what's going to be really stable with that? I mean, Aries is your 4th house. A lot of times we never feel quite at home. We feel restless. And so, looking at the eclipses coming in this house too, it might be a time where you do need to move. Or there's some work to do with your family of origin, or maybe you need to visit your family again or talk to them. But if you are considering a move, definitely think about relocation astrology, because this is the way that you can really strategize where to go, when to go. This is for any, anyone that's thinking of a move at any time. Such a great strategic tool. That's one of my niches in astrology. So I'll put the link in the chat if you are thinking, especially Capricorn risings, but this could also come up for Cancers as well. There's a lot of energy moving through your 4th house. Let's just jump there now so you could see this, right? It's always the time of the year where you are like maybe nesting or looking at your home a lot. But Mars is there. When Mars moves through the 4th house, a lot of times we move. It's a 2-month process, happens every 2 years. Or there's a shakeup, or there's energy moving very dynamically in our home space. So that might be happening for you, Cancer risings, as well. Could be having to do with your career, could shake up your career with the full moon this week landing in your career house. So some kind of activation going on for you career-wise. Maybe you need to step out a little more than you're comfortable with, usually as a Cancer rising, and make sure to be nurturing yourself quite a lot during this moon. So if we go back and we look at Aquarius rising is going to have the full moon landing in the 3rd house, which is, a moon that's getting you really into learning, sharing information with others. You could be learning some new like marketing techniques, maybe a new technology. Aquarius always into kind of innovation, experimentation. Maybe you're working with AI more, and learning how to synthesize some ideas for others and for yourself. So think about learning a lot right now. Maybe some short trips, maybe some trainings. That's very much a moon landing in the 3rd house. And then we go, of course, Pisces and 2nd house. Now this should bring up, a question around your resources and your finance. And I wonder if there's like some kind of new venture that you want to step into. I mean, Aries is a sign of risk-taking when it comes to the 2nd house of money. And you need to be careful with that. So maybe you're looking at, a riskier investment, but can you balance that out with, longer term ROI, right? Or like, if you think of like one of the safest investments typically has been dividend stocks. And, you think of, there's some that give you like high yield return versus, these like long-term ETFs that, have all of these different companies in them that are pretty safe companies that have been around for a long time, that should be around for a long time, that, give us pretty solid return. So maybe you're looking at like these kinds of investments. Again, 8th house is also very involved during this time. So there's a lot of energy around, how you are invested with others versus how you're investing your own self or your own value. So the time you're investing, the money you're investing, and the money that you're earning, right? And so this is a time where you Pisces risings, you're very gifted, you're spiritually oriented, and usually channels and empaths, and you can be directing your gifts towards maybe a new pioneering way of earning money right now. And we talked about Aries rising, but with Taurus rising, the moon is in the 12th house. And this, again, this is a behind the scenes kind of moon. So it might be a time where you're doing more internal work, more meditation. You might go on a retreat during this moon, or take a couple days to retreat. So yeah, and allow yourself to just feel very stable, very supported, but getting ignited and inspired by metaphysics, spiritual teachings, maybe some service work, right? That's coming up for you, Taurus risings. And with Gemini, the moon is activating the 11th house of community. And this seems to suggest that it's really important to be really asking, who are my people? Who's my tribe? Where are they? Again, if I'm not living in that place where I do have tribe around me, this might really bring that up, because there's an activation as well, as we come into eclipse season around the area of creativity and self-expression, which needs a community. It needs people to support it. So you know, whether it's online or in person, where are my people? What causes do I want to support? How do I engage with my communities and you know, receive support and give support to them? So our cosmic friends are what's living in the 11th house, right? So that's what's going on for Gemini rising. And lastly, we did these kind of out of order, but thanks for, you know, moving through that river with me. Leo risings, you have the moon in the 9th house, which is, you know, a wonderful time, again, because you're a fire sign, this is a fire moon. So it could be very igniting, very inspiring. You could be very out, you know, with your leadership, with your charisma, with your charm, with your passion to create and be in front of people. So if you have an opportunity to speak, this could be a great, you know, moon for that. It could be entrepreneurial for you. It could be about travel. But I like the sort of publishing, blogging, vlogging, getting out there, being very outward focused with this moon. And if you are, again, traveling, because this is the house of foreign travel, especially like spiritual types of trips or pilgrimages, again, think about relocation astrology of where to go when, and looking at your power places around the world. You know, this is a moon in general that could make us think about moving, you know, or going on an adventure, because Aries is a very restless sign. And I always like to share with people that this idea of relocation astrology, you know, what first attracted me to it was when I looked at my relocated chart for where I was living. It was expressing more of like my experiences of where I was living. I wasn't living where I was born. And a lot of us don't live where we were born. We, you know, as soon as you move off of the time zone, and even sometimes, you know, before you move off the time zone, your chart is changing, it's rotating. And so you have different highlights, different characters, different planets inside of you that are being triggered, activated. And so I really want to suggest all of us to look at your relocated chart and to study it in depth, because most of us don't live where we were born, and there's different effects going on in our place of residence. Cycles, transits are happening to us where we live. So this is when I work with clients on the level of relocation astrology, we must look at where you're living now and the chart for there. So again, if that's of interest to you, let's check out your astrolocality, AstroCartography, all these fancy terms for where are my power places in the world, right? And again, this full moon is going to be a big one for finding ourselves, really activating that Aries, like, who am I? Remember, going back to that quote, let me give you that quote again from Lady Gaga. Here it is. Don't you ever let a soul in the world tell you that you can't be exactly who you are, right? And also remember patience during this moon, and remember a time when patience actually helped you find who you truly want to be, right? And there's that delicate dance of Aries Libra. So I hope this has been helpful for everyone. Again, this is VerDarLuz from Divine Timing Coaching. Let's stay in touch. Stay tuned for some more webinars coming up and some more classes on the moons and eclipses. All the best. Namaste.